Oh boy, here we go again with the Supreme Court, man. Me and Crystal did a story the other day on some of the Supreme Court decisions, and basically every single one of them we discussed was bad. Every one of them was bad to one extent or another. Now I have more for you, and these are also very, very bad. So look at this one. Supreme Court says prosecutors improperly charged some January 6th defendants. The U.S. Supreme Court limited which defendants accused of taking part in the January 6th Capitol riot can be charged by federal prosecutors for obstructing Congress. The court's decision also places at least a cloud of doubt about 2 of the 4 felony counts in the election subversion indictment of Trump. In an opinion by Chief Justice John Roberts, the court ruled that the government must establish that the defendant impaired the availability or integrity for use in an official proceeding of records, documents, objects, or other things used in an official proceeding. Prosecutors used a key criminal statute to prosecute more than 350 of the most violent participants in the riot. The statute had 2 parts. The first part makes it a crime to corruptly alter or destroy documents and records related to an official proceeding. The second part makes it a crime to otherwise obstruct or impede an official proceeding. In this case, the congressional counting of the Electoral College ballots. Roberts said the statute was limited to documents and evidence destruction, and that the word otherwise was not meant to broaden the meaning of the law into a catch-all provision. Writing for the court majority, Roberts said the statute was limited to documents and evidence destruction. Okay, so in other words, let me break down what this means here. It's not enough for them to just block an official proceeding. That's not a crime to just block the official proceeding. You need to go basically a step above and beyond. You need to shred documents or do something with the official record keeping that would be trying to mess up what was going on here. So effectively, they're making it so that hundreds of the people who were brought down for what happened on January 6th, you're no longer going to be able to punish them. That's what they're saying here. They're saying a lot of these people that you think are guilty are actually not guilty. They actually should be let go. Honestly, I think it's an astonishing decision. I really do. Because, just think about it logically. Obviously, there are ways to impede the official proceeding without tearing up documents, right? It's very clear, what they were doing was not a secret. What they were doing is not a debate. It's not up in the air. We know what the intention was because they tell us what the intention was. Their intention was to block them from certifying Joe Biden, which is an attempt to do a coup, which is an attempt to keep Trump in there. But the fact that it was ragtag groups that were doing it and they were really disorganized and it was very haphazard. I think the fact there was some Keystone Cops-like situation, that's helping them with this Supreme Court decision where they feel it was kind of never going to work anyway, so let's not throw the book at them. Let's make sure that, only in the most egregious examples can you really lock them up if they're destroying documents. But if they're not destroying documents, hey, what are you going to do? Did they really commit a crime? Well, yes. If their main goal is to stop the approval and certification of Joe Biden, and they went about trying to get that done, you're saying because they weren't successful with it and they didn't go the next step of destroying documents is not really a crime? That is what they're saying. So, look, let's call a spade here. This is the Supreme Court saying, I don't think it was really an insurrection, but if it was, it didn't go far enough. So therefore, we're going to say you're off the hook. What a preposterous ruling. And this, by the way, this is what you get when you have a 6-3 conservative court. This is what you get. They come up with insane things like this. You know what else they come up with? Insane things like this. Supreme Court says restrictions on homeless people not cruel and unusual. The Supreme Court sided with a small southern Oregon town in a 6-3 ruling Friday, saying it has the authority to enforce ordinances that criminalize behaviors associated with being unhoused, like sleeping or camping on public property or parks, even when no shelter is available. The decision effectively gives the okay to other metropolitan areas struggling with rising homelessness to enact similar restrictive laws targeting outdoor camping. Quote, we are disappointed that a majority of the court has decided that our Constitution allows a city to punish its homeless residents simply for sleeping outside with a blanket to survive the cold when there is nowhere else for them to go. So in other words, they can ban camping. They can ban camping on public property even if there is no other place for the homeless to go. They're still allowed to do the sweep of the encampments and to destroy whatever private property those homeless people have, if it's a tent or if it's a shopping cart or whatever, clothes, food. They could basically kick homeless people out of these public areas, even if they don't have anywhere else for them to go. Now, I need you to stop and think about the logical implication of that, right? Think of the logical implication of that. Let's say you get a law like this across the country, right? sorry, homeless people, we know we don't have any shelters for you, but you can't be here in public. Well, then that means you have effectively criminalized homelessness without providing people a roof over their head. So what are they supposed to do? According to the government, they're supposed to just not exist. So the conditions that brought about the poverty and brought about the homelessness, they're not criminalizing the poverty which leads to it. They're criminalizing the homelessness itself. But as we just established, what if they don't have anywhere to go? There's no more shelters. There's no place they could put a roof over their head. There's no religious institution that'll take them in. You're just criminalizing extreme poverty. That's all you're doing. And then, by the way, of course, the next step is what? If you kick them out from one place and they go to another place and they get kicked out from that place and they go to another place, eventually you go round and round and these people end up being in prison or jail for being homeless. And then that runs up the cost to the taxpayer when you could have avoided it all and just upfront paid for a roof over their head. If you just paid for a roof over their head up front, and by the way, guess what? That saves money more so than leaving them out there. It saves the taxpayer money. And so look, this is just a move from the Supreme Court to criminalize extreme poverty, criminalize homelessness. It says, look, on a city-by-city basis or a state-by-state basis, if you want to ban having any homeless people in public, you're allowed to do that. You're allowed to ban homeless people in public, even if there's nowhere else for them to go. So then you're just going to kick them from one place to another place to another place. And again, we're just playing hot potato here. The real answer is to attack the problem at its root, right? The real answer is to mandate that you need a roof over everybody's head. But no. I mean, basically what they're saying is homeless people have no rights. And the Eighth Amendment, protection from cruel and unusual punishment, it doesn't apply for homeless people. They're saying it's not cruel and unusual for them to ban you from being in public, even though you have nowhere to go to put a roof over your head. That's not cruel and unusual. To say you can't exist in public. Well, then what the fuck are they supposed to do? They can't exist in public and they have these laws everywhere. There's nowhere where they can exist in public and they don't have a place to put a roof over their head. They're basically saying, fuck off, go die. Astonishing. All right, I got one more for you on this. Supreme Court guts agency power in seismic Chevron ruling. The Supreme Court on Friday curtailed the executive branch's ability to interpret laws it's changed with implementing, given the judiciary more say in what federal agencies can do. So this is actually very similar to one of the cases me and Crystal talked about the other day. It's just another way to gut the regulatory state, the administrative state. It's another way of saying, no, we're going to give it to the courts as opposed to the federal agencies. And it's a way to just hamper the federal agencies and make sure they can't do anything to regulate business. The landmark 6-3 ruling along ideological lines overturns the court's 40-year-old Chevron deference doctrine. It can make it harder for executive agencies to tackle a wide array of policy areas, including environmental and health regulations and labor and employment laws. So they're taking away the leeway of these federal agencies to address things involving the environment and health and labor and employment. They're saying, you guys don't have regulatory authority over these things. Well, guess what? These are the only government agencies that actually do anything to be proactive to help fix some of those problems. Now they're saying you don't have the ability to do it. Even if Congress delegates to you the ability, we're going to say you don't have the ability. Chief Justice John Roberts, writing the opinion of the court, argued Chevron defies the command of the Administrative Procedure Act, which governs federal administrative agencies. He said it requires a court to ignore, not follow the reading the court would have reached had it exercised its independent judgment as required by the APA. Further, he said it is misguided because agencies have no special competence in resolving statutory ambiguities. Courts do. So he's basically saying, we want you to never rely on the expertise of these federal agencies. We want you, anytime there's a question, go to the courts. Let the courts decide it. Well, guess what? Many judges, they don't have the expertise when it comes to environmental matters, right? They don't have the expertise when it comes to health matters. Again, it's a way of hampering the regulatory state, making it so we don't have any more regulations and businesses can run wild. That's the gist of this decision. We've had how many decisions now? 8, 10, something like that. Virtually everyone from the Supreme Court has been terrible and has dragged this country decades into the past. This is as ugly as it gets, man. This imperial decline is in overdrive right now. I've never seen anything like it.
Hey y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop, and watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.